we're gonna take the Symphony Yuletide program this afternoon.
Oh.
So he really needs to kind of
Get rested for that.
get rested and be sharp, because we're gonna have to take 2 cars to get there, and it's either he drives one and I drive one, or I drive one and one of the grandkids drives. The grandkids are fine drivers, but they haven't driven downtown.
Yeah, that's
And the circle is just a nightmare to drive. So I would prefer that he drive one vehicle and I drive another one, but you know, if he's not up to it, then.
Okay, for your keys, the old keys to the church that you can't use anymore, if you want to give them to me, Lions Club collects them and they give them, they're called keys for cancer. And they turn the keys in and they, I don't know what they do with them, but the
they
Lions
go
Club
around
gets
robbing.
money.
They rob the old places and sell what they took.
Could be.
Only Brent would think of something like that, right?
Yeah.
I grew up on the west side. What can I
Yeah.
say? Well, I see David Mills is online, but I don't see David Mills. We don't see Doral. We see John and his coffee.
Me,
Well, now we see you as you lean in.
I know this thing likes John. It doesn't like me. I think it's because he moves around a lot.
I saw enough of you, Betty, that I love your sweater.
Oh, thank you. I got this years ago in Mall of America up in Minnesota.
Up in Minnesota.
Minnesota. Well, speaking of Minnesota, the Vikings sure put it to the Colts yesterday.
Yeah,
And be ahead 33-0 at the end of the first half and lose. Jeez.
in overtime though.
That takes talent.
Yeah, in overtime. They just can't finish a game.
They sure can't. I mean, all they had to do is score a few points. They scored what, 3
Yeah,
points in the second half was all?
yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't get that.
Unbelievable.
I always
Well,
wonder.
they may have been at home at the time, I don't know, and not come there yesterday. And so.
Nancy has a hard time following lots of things, but she was following that on the radio and she was just shaking her head.
Yeah, they're a mess.
I just thought I automatically.
Well, at least we don't have to worry about a playoff berth.
Well, that's true. Yes. Like, but they did epitomize the old saying, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yep.
They had it won.
Well, and to think they've set a couple of nasty records this year.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest comeback in NFL history, and then what was the other day when they got beat 59-19 or whatever, it was like the widest margin in NFL history. Not exactly things you'd want to be known for.
Yeah. Well, my sister and her husband, Kathleen and Paul, they are part of the West High Alumni Association, as our whole family is. And so they volunteered to sell concessions at a high school game back on our side of town, which is much different than when we grew up. But they went, it was a girls' basketball team, and the girls were playing Eastmore, which is a rival on the east side of Columbus versus West. And the final score was 59-7.
Oh, wow.
I said, oh, what kind of girls' basketball team do we have?
Like a cold.
Man, 59-7, you score 7 points.
This was high school?
Yeah,
Ooh, wow.
yeah.
Junior high, maybe.
Yeah. Paul said it looked like they went out and just grabbed people off the street, you know, were walking down the halls of the high school, said, you want to play tonight?
Second half of the Colts game, I think they thought the same thing.
Yeah, really.
Like still using the same quarterback.
Yes,
The old guy.
Matt Ryan.
The old guy, he's only what, 39?
Yeah.
7,
Or whatever.
yeah.
For football, that's old.
But I'm thinking,
Dave Mills,
no, we're
Sylvia Mills Beane, Dan.
morning, good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Guess what I got?
What?
I got Nance.
Yeah, Nancy's
Hey, all
here.
right, all right. Now what, who?
That's right, who? Oh,
Nancy, where are you?
Oh, they're back there talking.
Good, that's good.
That's wonderful.
Morning, everybody.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Sue.
Morning, Sue.
Sue, how are you feeling these days?
I'm feeling pretty good. Ribs are almost back to normal. My left leg is still a work in progress, but I have finished my physical therapy. So now it's all home-based, and I'm looking forward to it.
Good, good. Are you getting out and around much here and there?
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Doesn't look like you want to be out today up there.
Whoa,
it's cold.
It's cold
snow
here.
on the ground.
There's,
Yeah, there's
yeah, there's a
snow.
little snow on the ground.
And the end of the week is gonna be brutal.
Oh, yeah.
So what's it like in Florida and Iowa?
What's the temperature say? 3 degrees this morning?
Yeah, that's next.
About as
weekend.
cold as it's been. Supposed to be cold all week, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're suffering too. It's down to 69 this morning,
Oh,
still suffering. That's
oh, I feel so bad for you.
I do too.
You really.
Have to put a coat on Louis to take his walk.
He wasn't that cold, but I did get his Christmas coat out. So
Cute.
Discovered yesterday that Dale has a very lively puppy. But if you put a coat on her, it calms her down. It really was weird that way. I mean, she was all over the place and they put her little Christmas jacket on her and she was just nice and quiet. and
It's
calm
like
down.
those thunder coats that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
What we do to hyperactive children in school too.
yep.
Put their winter coats on them and send them home.
That'll work.
I remember a family reunion in Florida, and we all decided that everybody was going to go to the ocean, and we would stand in the ocean and have somebody take our picture, except it was 42 degrees.
Wow.
We about froze to death.
Makes me cold thinking about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
they're saying it's supposed to be that way next weekend here too.
Mm.
But
It's
they've been
supposed to be
saying
single
that,
digits.
they've been saying that for a week and it hasn't gotten below 68 yet, I don't think.
Oh, such a hard life.
Steve, are you guys gonna get down here this winter?
I don't know. Life's a little confusing, you know. I thought I was tuning into a church service this morning and it sounds like sports talk radio. So don't know whether we will or not. I'd like to.
Should I ask your wife?
Same answer.
That's
Don't know,
unusual.
but we'd like to.
How did the service on the 5th go? I haven't heard any reports about that other than seeing it. Was it attended by anybody but you and Valley Mills?
Nobody except us in Valley Mills, no, but there were,
Well, Gene Carter,
well, that's right, yeah. Gene and Carol.
Gene and Carol were here from Plainfield.
Right, right. Nobody other than Quakers from around. There were no neighborhood people that were here.
Including Zoom, there were 33 people.
Oh, that's good.
So Dave, how are you feeling?
Me?
Mhm.
I'm doing fine. Ribs are okay now.
Good.
And I started some physical therapy of my own on how to walk behind a dog without tripping over him.
Yes. Sometimes that's a challenge.
thinking about Jody this morning. It would be her birthday, wouldn't it?
It would.
Hi, Jonathan.
Morning.
Jonathan?
Oh,
We have a date with Jonathan coming up this week. We're going to be
Hey.
driving through Kentucky and stopping to visit with Jonathan.
Oh, good.
Good.
Looking forward to it.
of course, you know what that means. If you get a visit, you know, from one of the elders in the meeting, you'll probably end up on a committee or something.
We only
I
have
just
one
said-
committee so far, right?
Oh, that's true. I was just trying to, you know,
It's pretty
throw a
safe.
little Quaker scare into him.
Yeah.
He's escaped all that so far.
Also gonna have lunch that day with cousin Becky.
Oh, good.
Never been to her house before. And near
Where she
Lexington,
lived.
near Lexington.
Okay. Lexington's such a nice town. I like that.
It's a pretty area, isn't it?
Mhm.
With all the horse farms.
Yeah. I went out to Keeneland this summer, the racetrack. Cause somebody had, I mean, I'm not a big, but somebody said, you know, you should go out for breakfast at the track breakfast. And it's where all the jockeys and the owners eat, and it's open to the public. And it's cheap. And it was, I mean, it was like $6 for a breakfast, and here were all these jockeys and trainers and owners, and it was kind of a fascinating experience, just hear them talk, and then could go watch them practice, no charge. It's really interesting, the history of the track.
Sylvia,
Yes.
when you are visiting with Becky, please give her my greeting and tell her that I remember when I was a 4-H'er that she was my little girl, and I made an outfit for me and one for her, and we were in the
The style show.
4-H, yeah, the fashion show. And Becky and I walked on stage together. So please tell her that Norma says hi.
I will do that.
Was that on a flatbed trailer?
No, it was in the high school.
Was it?
Well, Lynn has a prelude for us, so we'll set her in to that.
And just so you know, I asked her to play, I heard the bells on Christmas Day. And I'll be speaking about that hymn. And if you want to get your hymn books, this might be a good time to go do that.
Which one?
I heard the bells on Christmas Day. I'll talk about it later.
Which hymn book?
Oh, the Sing Joyfully. I'm sorry, Lynn.
Well, for announcements, we will have a monthly meeting this morning at 10:35. We will not be having meeting for worship next Sunday, either in person or in Zoom. On the 1st, though, we will have meeting for worship only on Zoom. But we will have music because Lynn has the piano at her house now, so. But we'll be doing that. And then we'll resume on the 8th. What was that?
You want to know what page 208?
Oh. That was American Sign Language.
I knew what she said.
I did. So those are the announcements I know. Does anybody else have any businessy kind of announcement? About joys and concerns?
Well, little Maggie is was supposed to have started her 5th and final round of chemo this week. But when she went in, they do an initial blood test and her numbers were not high enough that they could attack them again, basically, is what the chemo does. So they're going in again on Tuesday for the blood test to see whether they can start that final round of chemo, which is supposed to be pretty brutal. So her numbers need to be as high as they can get them before they start attacking them again. So you might keep her in your prayers this week. And her mom and dad and siblings.
Well, I consider it a joy to be here this morning.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, another county heard from. I just want to mention that the clerk of our meeting has had went in for a very slightly delayed mammogram and discovered that she had metastatic breast cancer. And I don't know exactly what's coming for her, but we're also heartbroken over the situation. And her name is Esther Wheeler, and you know, we seek your prayers.
Last week I mentioned my cousin Scott, who was going to have a stem cell transplant. That happened on Friday, and it went great. So he'll be in the hospital the next 5 weeks to be kept safe. So, but I talked to him and we had a nice visit. So he's each one of us has been calling him every few days. So but he's doing well. Appreciates the prayers.
Some of you may know that Eden Grace is battling some terrible cancer treatments and going through some terrible cancer treatments because she reacts to so many so far. And she posted a picture of herself with no hair a couple days ago, and she's feeling the trauma of that. Prognosis is pretty good, but she's got to go through some miserable stuff between now and then.
Let's hold these things in the light. We can put ourselves on mute while we center down, and Sylvia is a worship leader and she will proceed as she feels led.
I will be speaking about some of the Christmas carols that are in our hymn book. So if you are close by, if you have a book close by and you want to go get it, I'll wait for your return before I begin. On the first day of this month, of December, Dan and I began using for our evening devotions this book called The Soul Felt Its Worth, and it's a 25-day devotional series through the music of Christmas. You may recall that those words are from the song, "O Holy Night," and the soul felt its worth. Remember that? In this book, each day prior to Christmas, we review the lyrics of a well-known Christmas carol. We read through a short history about how that carol came to be, and then we read a devotional message with a connected scripture. We kind of like our morning devotional part better, as they are reflected in Bob Goff's book about living by grace and walking in love. Is much more to the point. But we do find the history of the carols interesting. And if there are any little mice in the corner of the room, they'll probably die laughing at these two old people singing Christmas carols in bed. We have learned that most of the Christmas carols familiar to us were written as church music in the 1700s and 1800s. By the way, to differentiate between a Christmas carol and a Christmas song, a carol is usually thought of as a song with a religious meaning and sung by a choir or congregation meant for several people to sing at the same time. Whereas the songs that are secular and sung for performance sake with solos are just called Christmas songs. Most carols tell the story of the birth of Christ and are pretty much based on the New Testament descriptions of that event. Songs such as The First Noel, A Little Town of Bethlehem, and Hark the Herald Angels Sing describe the scene as narrated in the New Testament books of Matthew and Luke, with a few additional words to interpret the meaning of it all. A few carols, such as Good King Wenceslas, tell a story of a person whose behavior takes seriously the teachings of Jesus. A few carols, such as Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, and Joy to the World, were not even written specifically for Christmas, but we consider them and we sing them at Christmas time. Well, obviously, we don't have time to review the 25 carols we're learning about in our devotional book, but I will share some thoughts about 3 of them that are especially meaningful to me. I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day is on page 208. Now, it's been years since some of us have been in a movie theater, but on Tuesday this week, Dan and I went to see a movie. After all, I thought if Chip gets his Bible knowledge from the movies, maybe I can too. The movie we saw, I Heard the Bells, is the story of the context from which Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote the Christmas poem of that title in about 1863. The movie probably won't win any Academy Awards, but we thought it was worth watching. Longfellow was born in 1802 in Maine, Portland, Maine, and he remained in New England his entire life except for his times of study in Europe. He was a professor at Bowdoin College, where he had been a student, and at Harvard University. Henry's first wife had died soon after the premature birth of their first child because of a rough trip across the ocean to Europe. According to the movie, his second wife was an adoring and faithful encourager to him. After having 6 children, she died in 1861 from burns she suffered when her dress caught on fire. The couple had worried about the strife in the country leading up to the Civil War, and Longfellow himself had vowed to keep his sons from participating in the battles. But after his wife had died and a son went off to join the war, he had great difficulty writing poetry. In the movie, it was his wife who had kept his faith strong, and after she was gone, he was in a state of depression and despair for a long time. But then, when he brought himself to read his wife's diary and got a dose of her remarkable faith, and he went to the pastor for help, and because it had been a tradition in their family to wait until the church bells rang before starting their celebration of Christmas, these are the words we sing. And in despair, I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. The Christmas Carol on page 189 is probably one of everyone's favorites. You may know the story of how it came about. The story goes that Silent Night, originally Still Nacht, was first performed on Christmas Eve in 1818. Joseph Moore, a young Catholic priest at St. Nicholas Church near Salzburg in Austria, was feeling desperate when the organ at his church had been incapacitated by mice eating the bellows. And the chances of fixing the instrument before the evening services were looking slim. But he had an idea. A few years before and a few days before Christmas, after he had returned home from being present when a woman in his church gave birth, he had written a beautiful poem called Still Nacht. So he asked Franz Gruber, a schoolmaster and friend and organist in a nearby town, to set his 6-stanza poem to music. That night, at the service, the two men sang Still Nacht for the first time at the church's Christmas Mass, while Moore played the guitar and the choir repeated the last 2 lines of each verse. But the power of that carol was never so clear as it was on Christmas Eve in 1914, when fighting on the battlefields of World War I stopped and a lone soldier's exquisite voice made history. Stanley Weintraub, the author who wrote about the story, said it was impromptu, no one planned it. It had to begin with something. I assume that means peace, had to begin with something. And it did begin with the elements of shared culture. If it hadn't been for shared culture, certainly there would have been no Christmas truce. Weintraub said it started with a German officer, Walter Kirchhoff, a tenor with the Berlin Opera, who was a soldier. He came forward and sang Silent Night in German and then in English. In the clear, cold night of Christmas Eve, his voice carried very far. The shooting had stopped, and in that silence he sang, and the British who knew the song sang back. Gradually, the troops crawled forward into no man's land, said Weintraub, and there was peace. The song had a deep impact on many of the soldiers. Soldiers wrote home the day after that to their family and to their wives and to their parents, saying, "You won't believe this. It was like a waking dream." They recognized that on both ends of the rifle, people are just the same. I think it only lasted for a night, but it was significant to them. And then "O Holy Night," which is on page 195, had its origins in the mid-1800s in France. But perhaps you haven't heard that the song stirred a lot of controversy in the church, to the point where it was banned. When asked to write a poem for his parish's Mass that Christmas, composer of the words, Placide Cappeau, I'm not sure I'm good with French, thought about the birth of Jesus as told in the Gospel of Luke, and he wrote the lyrics. Now, you might notice that Cappeau is not listed as a lyricist in our hymn book. He sought out the help of his Jewish friend, Adolphe Adams, to help him in the composition of the music, and his name is listed in our hymn book. The song was initially titled Cantique de Noël, And although the church in France initially accepted the carol, Capot was later swayed by socialist propaganda and walked away from his faith and renounced the church. Therefore, the church in France condemned the work due to this and banned it from using it. Nevertheless, the lyrics and music made their ways to America through abolitionist John Sullivan Dwight. His name is listed as the lyricist. He changed some of the words slightly, and Dwight particularly identified with the third verse, which spoke about breaking the chains of slavery and seeing every man as our brother. Thanks to Dwight and the covert efforts of the lyrics being sung during Christmas in Europe, the song's notoriety spread worldwide. And this song, too, was rumored to have been used in war, sung on Christmas Eve during the Franco-Prussian War by the soldiers on both sides. These are the words that I find most meaningful. Truly, he taught us to love one another. His law is love and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppressions shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy and grateful chorus raise we. Let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Oh, praise his name forever. His power and glory evermore proclaim. Fall on your knees. Oh, hear the angel voices. O night divine, O night when Christ was born. So I invite you to search the carols for words that have special meaning to you. What do the carols say about the arrival of Jesus in this world? And are those words applicable today? Why aren't there more carols being written? When will you or one of us write one that reflects the true meaning of this time in history? Or do the old carols say what needs to be said for one and all? I invite you to share special phrases in the carols that you think say the message of Christmas for us.
one of the hymns that has a lot of meaning for me is on page 193. And it's called Of the Father's Love Begotten. It's not one of the more popular songs for the season. But if you read through the words, it encompasses everything from the beginning of time and far into the future. Of the Father's love begotten, ere the world began to be, he is Alpha and Omega. He the source and the ending, he. Of the things that are, that have been, and that future years shall see, evermore and evermore.
reach for God. Reaching out to the world. Reaching out in love. Be open to God's mystery. Hear what the angels say. Come and see what love has done on this Christmas day. The God of all eternity, this moment comes in love, heralded by angels. Do not be afraid.
We'll continue our program worship and bid Godspeed to our friends who need to leave. God's Spirit be with you this week and throughout the week. Hope to see some of you again at monthly meeting. And again, remember, there will not be a meeting for worship next Sunday.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Hmm.
If hearts are clear, we'll close meeting for worship now. And hope to see everybody at meeting for business in just a little while. Thank you, Sylvia, for your words.
Yes, thank you.
And Lynn for the music to accompany the words.
Yes.
We will see you all shortly, we hope.
Bye.